In this episode of Car and Driver Abroad, we drive the Nissan Juke-R. We want to discover whether this GT-R-powered Juke is the supercar slayer it promises to be, and we introduce it to the wildest car we know, the GT2 RS. Can a pumped-up Juke beat the most powerful road-going 911 ever around a track and to the quarter mile? We're about to find out. The Nissan Juke might look a bit weird, but it's a sensible sort of car. Practical, efficient, affordable, and about as exciting as a damp lettuce leaf. But this is a different sort of Juke. It uses a shortened GT-R chassis, the GT-R 3.8 litre twin turbocharged V6, and of course the freakishly capable GT-R 4-wheel drive system. This is the Juke-R, and it's not just a concept. Nissan are actually going to build a small production run, yours for $590,000. It does look pretty special though. Inside, it's a mix of familiar GT-R instruments and controls and tasty race preparation. It's a kind of GT-R stripped out and running on stilts. This prototype uses early GT-R running gear, so just 485 horsepower. Customer cars will be based on the 2012 model and faster still. It's a heroically mad concoction then, but can it really work? Well, it feels really strange in here. Everywhere you look and everything you touch is GT-R. But you're in a Juke, you're about 2 feet higher, so you just don't expect this steering response, this noise, and this amount of power. If anything, the Juke-R feels even more aggressive than the GT-R due to its really short wheelbase. It feels keener to turn in, and there's more oversteer too. It's funny, a lot of people say the GT-R sort of drives itself, but I've never subscribed to that. It's got a huge amount of power, super responsive chassis, and if you're not on top of it, it gets away from you really, really quick. The four-wheel drive helps you out, but by no stretch of the imagination does it just sort everything out. You don't just sort of hold on in wide-eyed amazement. You have to get involved, and that's great. One thing though, this car is actually heavier than a GT-R. It's getting on for £4,000. And I think when we actually start to go properly quick, that could be, that could be an issue. But first impressions are that this thing is beautifully constructed. You sort of think it will be like some sort of concept car, but it's so well made. It feels really well sorted. And it's a massive amount of fun. I love this little thing. Whoa. So the Juke-R does work brilliantly. It's more than just a show pony, but just how quick is it? Porsche's GT2 RS should provide a bit of context. The RS is pared back to the extreme and weighs little over 3,000 pounds, has 6 gears selected by an old-fashioned stick, it's rear-wheel drive. In fact, this car is simplicity itself. But it's murderously fast. Its twin-turbo 3.6 litre flat 6 produces 611 horsepower and 516 foot-pounds of torque. And even the Juke looks a bit weak next to the wide arches, vast intakes and monster rear wing of the Porsche. And check out the ceramics, the centre locks, it just oozes aggression. This car is about speed, pure and simple. Can the Juke-R compete?
So there's no question there's some real substance to this Juke-R. It's not just a bit of fun. You can actually drive it and enjoy it like you would any other proper performance car. But to find out if it's really as good as it first seems, we need to do a proper lap time and see if everything hangs together. We're at Bedford Autodrome, which is quite a flat circuit, but it's also very, very quick, very, very safe. And I'm pleased about this because we've insured this thing for a rather large fortune. But we're going to drive it as quick as it can go against a car that is probably the benchmark mad supercar, and see if it really hangs together, if this thing is worth the money they're going to charge for it. Okay, so this is it, the moment of truth. Will the Juke-R really perform like a proper supercar should over a lap, a proper lap? The surface should play into its hands. It's not dry, it's not wet, it's that sort of horrible in between. But that's when you'd expect this four-wheel drive system to really start to show its worth. Quite excited about this actually. Immediately you can feel the traction is superb, and you can feel its weight on the brakes. But it turns in so well. Oversteer on the exit, but no time loss because the four-wheel drive just keeps digging you out. You can feel that short wheelbase. It's not massively stable on the brakes. Bit of understeer through here, but not bad. Just the surface is a bit wet. Pretty good. It's the wettest part. Can't get on the throttle. Woo! Patient through the long corners. Bit of oversteer. It's lovely on the exit of that hairpin. As the tyres get hot, there's actually a bit more understeer. Makes it a bit trickier to drive, but wow, you can get on the power so early, and the gearbox is such a help. Never have to take your hands off the wheel. So that's a lap in the Juke-R. You have to work this thing pretty hard, and it is great fun, and considering these conditions, super, super quick. Let's see how wild it feels though next to the GT2 RS.
I don't mind admitting that trying to extract the best from the GT2 RS in damp conditions is a terrifying prospect. The power delivery is violent and the lightly treaded Michelin Cup tyres need temperature in them and don't much like moisture on the surface. Today of all days, the Juke-R really has a shot.
Oh, it's so fast. I just don't know if I'm going to have the balls or the ability to make it stick through these quick corners, which the Juke was so good through. I've got the dampers on soft to give the tyres a chance to get up to temperature, to give the chance for the chassis to lean a little and find some grip, because some of this track's really dry and others are really still damp. I've got everything off because I think that's the fairest way to compare the difference between a really powerful rear-wheel drive car and the Juke with its clever GT-R four-wheel drive system. So let's see what happens. Oh God, why do I do this?
These two cars are incredibly well matched in these tricky conditions. Sector 1 is all about top speed, braking performance and traction. The GT2 RS hits 117.8 miles an hour before braking for the tight hairpin to the Juke-R's 112.53, but it does lose some time on the way out of the corner where you struggle to keep the turbos on boost. Even so, it steals an advantage through the fast curves that follow and is around 0.8 quicker across the sector. The chicane in Sector 2 was pretty wet, but still the GT2 RS builds its lead, mainly because of the way it leaps out of the long left hairpin. The traction and acceleration is just incredible, enough to offset the disadvantage of changing gears manually. Its lead now is exactly 1 second. The final sector has a rapid change of direction and 2 fast corners. The Juke is closer here, but mainly through driver error. I kept getting too much oversteer through the final turn in the Porsche. Iron out some of my mistakes or dry the track completely and that gap would grow pretty quickly. Which is more fun? Well, you'd have a ball in either, to be honest, but the GT2 RS is just fantastic. You could spend the rest of your life learning about it and never ever get bored.
So the Juke-R's ready, it's primed, it's in launch control, and he's got the easy job. All he has to do is nail the throttle, doesn't even need to change gear. This car might have launch control, but it's really down to the driver. Can you keep up with this engine? Can you get this gearbox to shift quick enough? We're going to find out whether all that technology can overwhelm the raw power of this thing.
The numbers say the GT2 RS should walk this contest. It has more power and a lot less weight, but all-wheel drive, launch control and seamless shifts can bend physics.
3, 2, 1, go!
But then again, a rear engine pressing on 325 section rear tyres can do pretty extraordinary things too. The Porsche jumps off the line with virtually no wheel spin, and it's a hell of a job to grab second before the rev limiter. Incredibly, it beats the Juke to 30 miles an hour, 1.55 seconds to the Nissan's 1.62. The Juke's gearbox is incredible though and steals back some time, helping the turbo stay right on boost continuously. At 60 miles an hour, the Juke has overturned the deficit and is a nose ahead, 3.51 plays 3.66. But from then on, the Porsche's power really starts to tell. It dips under 7 seconds to 100 miles an hour, a second up on the Juke-R. But that's the last the Juke will see of the GT2 RS, as the gap grows rapidly as power and aero take over. The bluff-fronted Juke is over 6 seconds slower to 150 miles an hour. The quarter-mile terminal speeds show just how quickly the GT2 RS builds speed once it's into its stride. It crosses the line in 11.35 seconds at 132.9 miles an hour. The Juke running a good time of 11.79 at 120.3. So the Juke-R couldn't quite match the GT2 RS either on track or in a straight drag race. But who isn't pleased that somebody at Nissan GB chose to build it or that race team Ray Mallock Limited did such an incredible job realising the dream, or indeed that there are people in the world mad enough to buy it even at $590,000. The world is a much better place because the Juke-R exists, and the GT2 RS? Well, it proves once and for all that the Germans have a great sense of humour. I love this car.